Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Lamfalussy also made some criticisms. He said that if we European leaders are not clever enough, if we don't take important steps, we will not have a situation where the euro benefits all euro area members. I may have heard that once from President Lagarde somewhere. Mr. Lamfalussy said that if we do not change, only the richest will benefit from the eurozone. The smaller and less wealthy countries in the euro area will not gain. If you look at the data, it's a pretty grim picture. Since the introduction of the euro, U.S. productivity and competitiveness have improved at a much faster pace than the competitiveness and productivity of the euro area. U.S. GDP has grown by around 170% since 2000, and the euro area by 140%. In its current form, the euro, as Lamfalussy warned us, favors strong and competitive economies, but doesn't help catching up economies to grow stronger. This is a serious warning, perhaps the most important legacy of Lamfalussy for Hungarians who are not yet members of the eurozone. It is precisely because of his admonition that we are not in the eurozone. The legacy of the father of the eurozone is the advice to Hungary. Beware, if your economy is not ready for accession, accession will kill you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have taken that advice. So I could say that in 30 years, we have gone from the Washington dissent to the Budapest consensus. But perhaps it is not unreasonable to use the term Budapest consensus, since the preceding consensus is the liberal Washington consensus. Apparently, if I understand the world correctly, it has just died out. It has been on its last legs in previous years, but since Donald Trump's victory, it can no longer hope for a resurrection. After no consensus in Washington, it's worth defining what it is that we all believe in and what we can take as a compass. This could be called the Budapest consensus. I'm talking about a projected normative vision, projected on the whole world, which can be briefly defined as the right of every nation to consider itself as the center of the world and the most important point of reference. For example, accepting with the utmost respect the doctrine we have just heard that size matters. Yet I have to say that Hungarians think that, economies of scale or not, Hungary is the center of the world, just as we accept that every nation sees its own country as the center of the world. And it follows that for all nations, including Hungary. The question we must answer is how we can ensure our survival, if possible, our growth in this new world. For a country to respond, it must first be clear what the world ahead will look like. Then, in my own language, which is not the language of economics, I would say that the liberal era is being replaced by a sovereignist era. Since we in Hungary have been building this era of sovereignty for 15 years, alone in the Western world, alone here, we in Hungary have been building this era of sovereignty for 15 years. Can we say one thing or another about the characteristics of the era ahead? I'll say a few things now. The first important experience is stability and security. Security will become more important in the period ahead. Those who cannot defend themselves are not partners, not even allies. It can be subordinate at best. So for every nation, preserving its own capacity for self-defense will be a key issue. Interestingly, the focus is not on the Russian war in Ukraine, but on migration. Today, the security and stability of Western countries, especially in Europe, will be determined by migration and its mathematically predictable consequences. Let's take a look at Hungary. Our liberal opponents tend to portray Hungary as an isolated country. In comparison, we have the best relationship with the new US Republican administration in the whole of Europe today. We have the best relationship with China. And we have the best relationship with Russia. Hungary is not isolated, the European Union is. The European Union is at loggerheads with the new US administration, and they haven't even taken office yet. The European Union has already isolated itself from China because it has launched a tariff war and has isolated itself from Russia, with whom it is at war. Who is isolated here? I have to say that we have the feeling that we are on the high street of history, while the European Union is stumbling and stumbling around in the muddy back streets of the UK. So if there is one country that is interested in peace, it is Hungary. If there is any country that has a vested interest in Donald Trump succeeding in ending the Russian war in Ukraine, it is Hungary. The success of the US administration's peace effort is not an ideological or even a geostrategic, but a vital everyday economic interest for Hungary. That is why we are hopeful that there will be peace, that the sovereign world policy transformation will take place, and that we will be able to finalize the Hungarian economic agreement with the US, which will give a boost to the Hungarian economy.